Hi, I'm Sunena Gupta, and I'm a research associate at Cleantech Group, and today we're going to be talking about novel electrolyzers. And so what we're seeing in the green hydrogen market is there's a few different types of kind of traditional electrolyzers that have been dominating the market, and those are the alkaline electrolyzers, or AEL, the anion exchange membrane, or AEM. There's proton exchange membranes, which are PEM, and to some extent, the solid oxide electrolyzer cells have also been coming up. And what we're seeing is in these electrolyzer systems, there's a few different challenges that are kind of limitations to scaling. And because of that, there's this new category of novel electrolyzers that have been coming about by different startups and innovators to kind of overcome these challenges and limitations. And so one example of that is that there's membranes in a lot of these electrolyzer systems, which can be quite costly and fragile to produce. And so some innovators are coming up with membraneless electrolyzers. And then there's also electrolyzers that have rare earth metals like platinum and iridium, which are difficult to source, so it causes supply chain issues. And they're also, again, expensive. And then one more barrier that we're seeing, which is quite significant, is kind of balancing the cost and efficiency levels of these electrolyzers. So there's these solid oxide electrolyzer cells, which are very expensive, but also highly efficient. And then there's other types of electrolyzers which have lower capex, but they're less efficient. And so one really interesting startup that we've seen come up in this space specifically to overcome this challenge is Advanced Ionics. And we have Ignacio Bincaz with us today, the CEO of Advanced Ionics, to kind of tell us a little bit more about how they're innovating and how they're overcoming some of these challenges. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I think it'd be great if we could start off with a brief overview of your technology and exactly how it works.
Yeah, thanks, Elena, for having us. So the technology is different from all the others. We don't fall into any of those categories. We're not even an improvement or an alkaline or a solid oxide. It's a technology that was designed from the ground up to be an electrolyzer that can serve heavy industry that uses hydrogen today or could use hydrogen in the future. So very geared to co-location with industrial processes. So we don't have membranes, you talked about membranes. What we're developing is a technology that strikes the right balance of the low OPEX and the low CAPEX. We have the same materials of construction as alkaline, so that is the CAPEX will get to as we continue to scale up. But then the OPEX will be at the solid oxide level. Why? Because we also operate in vapor phase. Similar to solid oxide, but not that high a temperature, not 700-800 Celsius, but rather 300 Celsius, let's say, somewhere in that range, which is the heat that is available in industry that uses hydrogen. So you'll find that heat in ammonia processes, in refining processes, in Fischer-Tropsch to make e-fuels and so on. So we would harvest heat from the process that uses the hydrogen to then produce hydrogen more efficiently. What happens, without getting too technical, is when you start with liquid water in alkaline PEM AEM, even if you don't boil the water, you're, in addition to the electricity you need to break the water molecule, you're adding the electricity, the power to vaporize the water anyway. So we don't have that energy penalty. So we're operating at 35 kilowatt hours per kilogram in the solid oxide range with alkaline capex.
Excellent. Okay, so the efficiency of solid oxide, but the capex of the other ones.
Yes.
Okay.
And particularly alkaline, because we don't have platinum or iridium like PEM, for example. Okay. So it's just nickel and stainless.
Yeah, and I think what we see sometimes is that there is speculation just in general about green hydrogen sometimes, but I'm sure with a newer type of electrolyzer, there might be a little bit of skepticism in the market. But you all have also been scaling, been fundraising, and I know that's been going well. So I'm just curious to understand what are some of the market use cases that you've really been able to shine in, or where there's like more demand for you?
So one way to look at it is where our investors and partners have come from. One of our biggest strategic investors, particularly, right? BP. We signed the pilot sponsorship with Shell and Repsol. And then now we have also technology providers like Lumos Technology and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. We now have JERA in the cap table as well, a power producer in Japan. So clearly this is already geared to industry. Some of the early adopters we expect are refining petrochemicals that want to add a little more capacity to their steam methane reformer, for example, but decarbonizing this additional technology. So maybe they add one of our modules as we get to 2, 3, or 10 tons per day per module. And now we're doing smaller size pilots. Like I said, the one with Shell is the most recent one. We have our next size stack, electrolyzer stack, starting. It's on startup mode right now this week, so it will be running in January. But we'll continue scaling up. But to give you an idea, that one we did an initial single cell, and now this stack is 800 square centimeters. That's really bigger than solid oxide. So we have already proven we can scale up beyond solid oxide size, which is the limitation. We're talking about the capex. They're very efficient, but they can't get much bigger than this. So we're already bigger.
Okay, so you've been able to kind of prove the scale of your technology so far. And I guess with getting investors in then, I know you've had a range of investors. You've had corporates, VCs, different types of investors. But yeah, again, just curious to know how that journey has been. And I know you very recently had a funding round. I think one of the first ones we saw this year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What are you planning to use that funding for, and kind of who's involved in it?
So the latest round closed in December, and we had JERA, like I mentioned, Lumos Technology, the Argosy Foundation, and BP invested yet again. They had invested already in 2023, middle of 23, and now in this one in December of 24. So it was a tough year for fundraising, don't get me wrong, and I did most of that while I was the Chief Commercial Officer at Advanced Ionics. I've been the CEO since November. And so this funding will help us get this size, this 800 square centimeter size, to towards a commercial, early commercial demo, for which we'll have the first stack ready at that size by the end of this year, to do some demos next year.
Yeah, I remember last time we spoke, you said that you were planning to have that plant come up this year and kind of full stage commercialization by around 2028. Is that roughly still what the plan is, or
so
what's happening in the next few years?
Yeah, we've been looking for ways to get there, and one of the things I did since November is find a new size that would enable us to get to commercial faster. So what we're doing is we have this size. The next size up, instead of jumping straight to 3 square meters, we found it more efficient to go to 1 square meter. A full stack, commercial size, commercial specs, parameters will be in the order of, say, 2 tons per day. So that is already a pretty good commercial size. Like, give you an idea, if order of magnitude, the margin of the hydrogen for our clients is $1 per kilogram, a stack that size is $750,000. If it's $2 per kilogram, it's $1.5 million. So all of a sudden, that I would call that commercial.
Yeah, definitely. And is there kind of any challenges that you foresee in kind of getting to that plan, whether that's technical? I know we've talked a little bit about sealing technologies before, or technical, financial. What kind of challenges do you see or foresee coming up in the next couple of years?
What we see is we need to continue to improve a lot of the operating parameters in the stack while continue to scale up. And actually, I have to say that this new size, we did a single cell back in late December over the holidays, and it did better than expected. So I'm very optimistic. And we'll have news on this new stack in the coming weeks. But what we're going to need is to continue to get funding. So we're already talking to a couple of key investors that are interested in supporting us, particularly moving to this new size. We're going to need some additional funding to get to the 1 square meter demos we want to do in 2026. So it's the eternal startup CEO dilemma, right? We need to continue to scale up. We need to continue to get funding.
Yeah, I think, again, talking about what we can expect in the next few years, I know you have a interesting network of partners. You have Lumos Technology. What can we expect coming out of these partnerships that you have, and whether you're expanding into some new use cases as well?
So this Lumos partnership particularly will be a huge enabler for us. Why? Because typically a startup like us doing electrolyzers would have to go pay an engineering firm to design a module. We have to build them, carry all that inventory, that huge working capital of millions of dollars, while you don't have any revenue. And so in this partnership, they take that whole module into their scope of the partnership. We can focus on improving, developing faster, and producing the electrolyzer stacks that will go in there. In the market, like you might have seen in the press release, in the market of refining petrochemicals, gas processing, polymers, Lumos Technology will be actively selling the modules with the electrolyzer in it.
Okay.
And that's what we think the early adopters will be. So anyway, that is the initial market for us. Green ammonia is not in the scope right now, but there will be another big one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I think later on, green steel will be.
Yeah.
They just need to put more DRI ovens to use the hydrogen.
Yeah, I think we've seen in our research as well, ammonia and green steel are two big market demands, but kind of depends whether the technology matches the market at the moment. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was great chatting to you, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of Advanced Ionics in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Sunena and Cleantech, for having us, and looking forward to staying in touch and giving all the good news we have coming up this year.
Yeah, absolutely.